Hello, and welcome back. This is Pacific Perspectives, the only podcast on Spotify.
Leave it there.
I'm
Yeah,
Next
just the
Memes,
only podcast on
and this is
Spotify.
I'm Kyler Miyamoto. I drank last night, and I've gotten 15 hours of sleep across the past 3 days. So I think I might just conk out in the middle of this podcast. I'm kidding. I'm gonna soldier on for you guys. I do this for you.
For
We
the
have
love of the
a
game.
great episode for you here today, and by that I mean it's the exact same as every other episode. We talk about hockey, and I'm gonna swing it over to Xavier now.
Thanks for that amazing intro, buddy. That was great. I did a little drinking last night too. It was buddy's birthday. It was nice. Slept over because I drove over. Drank too much. Don't drink and drive, kids.
Hey, to the girl who was waiting outside the SAQ in Montreal just before it opened, please hit me up. Okay, let's talk about hockey.
Do you, do you, do you really think she's listening to this? If she
No.
is, I'll say that if she is, she's the one. So you really got it there, but I doubt it.
That is true.
Anyways, yeah, the Canucks and the Oilers, I'd say, had a pretty interesting week. I have to say, across the league, I have never had this much fun watching other people's games. Now, for most of the Oilers season, I'd say basically up until game 50, 55, when they actually started to struggle and they came back from Four Nations, I I mean, I just enjoy watching hockey and I enjoy watching the Oilers players, but those games didn't really have any meaning. They didn't you got a little something right there. Spaghetti boy.
Well, it's gonna fucking stay there until I'm done.
But anyways, before I got sidetracked by Mr. Spaghetti, I think most Oilers fans can kind of agree with this. I mean, you go from Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals, all that hype, everything going on there, and you go to October, November regular season hockey. You could see it with some of the Oilers and the way they were playing. I've talked about this before. They obviously were in the same boat as the fans. They were not as hyped. There's just a very stark contrast there. Now, I figured it would be that way, but then we started struggling, so the meaning for the games really came back, because not only are we genuinely playing for home ice in the very first round at this point. If you haven't caught it, the Kings are actually currently ahead of us. I'd say the Oilers, the Knights, and the Kings are probably the best. I'd say they're the most evenly matched of divisional teams. I'd say the Central has three better teams, just because it's the Avs, Stars, and Jets. But that first round is going to be very even. I know it's Kings, Oilers, and I mean it's going to happen. It's inevitable at this point. The only way I see that not happening is if the Kings win the division. I don't think it's possible for the Oilers at this point, because they don't have the math, they don't have the schedule, and frankly, they just don't have the goalie, which we'll get to that as well. The Oilers, they had an interesting week, because I thought that was, in terms of their on-ice play, their most dominant week after a complete wash of genuinely playing bad, which a lot of the time when we lose, I'd say only about 30% of the time, it's because we genuinely got outplayed. The other 70% is something happened, it was an even game, and it just went the other way, which is how a lot of hockey games are decided. But then there's also the goaltending, which loses us. I'd say genuinely about half of our losses is because our goalie was worse or significantly worse than the other teams, which gets insanely frustrating. And there was no better example of this than this week. I think we outshot the New Jersey Devils, who even without Hughes, even without Hamilton, are an elite team, at least when it comes to preventing shots and getting shots, good special teams, great goaltending. Both guys in the tandem. And we outshot them 35-20. We genuinely outplayed them a majority of the game. There was some time in the first I kind of felt like the game got away from us, but we stuck with it. We were especially blocking shots We were playing like an experienced elite team, both sides of the puck, and playing great defense. And then we played the Sabres before that, and we obviously outplayed them as well. And then we also lost 3-2 again because Stuart Skinner. I mean, there was a few bad defensive plays, especially by the wingers. I have really liked how the blue line has played. Even Troy Stetcher. I've even enjoyed how Troy Stetcher has played, which has not happened in his entire Oilers career. But the defensive play, where it lacks right now for the Oilers, is really just the forwards. I see sometimes Draisaitl or McDavid having very, very old and dated defensive issues, which has kind of crept back into their game as they tend to not have as much buy-in from losing or just not caring as much about regular season hockey. I don't know what it is, but something's going on. But especially the wingers, especially Arvidsson. It was Jeff Skinner, but not recently. Ever since he got scratched, he's been great defensively. Podkolzin actually recently had a couple bad giveaways, which is very uncharacteristic of him because he's been kind of almost elite defensively up until now. So that was a little off-putting. Like I got to say that the Norris to I think it was Tage Thompson goal where Bouchard was the only guy back and he kind of got made look like a dumbass. Well, first of all, that is a product of him not being like the fastest guy on the team, which doesn't mean you suck. But obviously in that point you can see that it lacks. If he's like 5% faster, he will get to that puck, he'll get it out. But what is he supposed to do there? On that specific goal against, what is he supposed to do? He cannot get it to the corner because he gets slashed on the stick right before
the corner. Maybe do something other than
he
just like let them take it from you and then make it a one-on-one with Tage Thompson against Stuart Skinner.
I don't think he could have done anything besides dive for it, and at that point, it's still a 2-on-0 with Tage Thompson in front of the net, and Norris likely has the puck to pass to him.
At least try.
He was trying. Okay, you're pissing me off. Skinner, I can let that goal go. But the other two, just make a save. And you can. It's not even the fact that these are absolutely awful games from the goalie. Like I think the game against Buffalo, it was like one goal below or above expected. The game against New Jersey was like one goal above expected. Like it's only ever by what, but it's every single game that the Oilers have the worst goalie. Every single game, except for the game. Actually, I wouldn't even say the game against the Islanders. They had, even though they won and Pickard only let up one. The Islanders did not have a real chance on net. I think the entire game, besides the one that went in, was their only real grade A chance. The other grade A chances that they had, first of all, there was like 2 in front of the net. They didn't even get them on net. They got blocked, or they just outright missed it, which maybe is luck, maybe is part of the defense playing great now. But you give up 20 shots, you give up 60 shots over 3 games. You expect a bit better. You expect a bit better. You should be able to win that game against all 3 of those teams every single time. Now, if we don't beat the Rangers, this road trip is already a complete failure. The fact that you're losing those games against a Jack Hughes-less New Jersey Devils, the Buffalo Sabres in 2025, and you outshot them all like by a margin of like 2-1. You cannot lose those games. If you're genuinely vying for the division, it's not happening. You lose those 2 games where you lost by 1 goal, and you clearly outplayed the opponent. Right now, we would be 1 point away from leading the division, and we'd have a legit chance at it, despite having all these struggles for a month. And that's my main point here is no matter what you want to talk about, giveaways, like bad defensive play, which is not true at all, the wingers not scoring, which is true, the depth not entirely being there, which is also kind of true. None of those problems mean anything in the face of what's going on with the Oilers goaltending. None of it matters. It doesn't even come close. It just makes no sense to genuinely criticize anything else. And I know at this point there are no options with the Oilers goalies. There are options if we're talking about like different depth options within the organization, different winger setups. And I do think I liked the kind of blender that Knobloch gave the forward lines. They gave Henrique with McDavid. They're not incredibly consistent forward lines. That's just how the Oilers roll, and I think that is a strength as well as a weakness for chemistry is concerned for the bottom six. But it kind of gets guys going sometimes. It's not an actual on-ice player issue. The skating roster is arguably the best in the league. That's not, I don't think many people, well, I think some casuals would probably debate that, but if you just look at the numbers, if you look at it, all situations, 5v5, they are basically the best team in terms of puck possession. The finishing isn't always there. The defensive effort is pretty consistently there, but sometimes they have some turnovers. The thing that is consistently wrong with this team is the goalie is always worse. The goalie's always worse. That's the main issue, and I don't think it's worth talking about anything else. Your mic is muted, by the way.
No, it's not.
Oh, you were just mouthing things at me.
Yep.
Well, I mean, that's my main discussion for the Oilers over this last week. Just pure frustration. And I'll add one last thing. This is the least hopeful I've ever been for the Oilers. I had more hope going into the 2018-19 season. I had more hope going into the 2020 bubble playoffs where we lost to Chicago in 4. It's not happening. I honestly hope we lose to the Kings, and in a very crushing fashion, so that the organization understands that Skinner's not doing it. Because if we get by and Skinner isn't awful, maybe they're like, we can keep it. No, he sucks.
I agree with you. I also hope you lose to the Kings, and I hope
They
it's in
deserve
crushing
one.
fashion as well. I hope it's. You know what I want desperately? Game 7, quadruple overtime. Andrei Kuzmenko dumps a puck in from the red line and it goes in.
Oh. You know what? I wouldn't hate that either, because then that would clearly be a goalie thing.
But the unfortunate part is that Stuart Skinner's not going to be able to get to quadruple overtime without giving up a goal. He's not going to go 3 periods without giving up a
that
goal.
would basically be a shutout. That's not happening for Skinner. It's not happening.
Okay, am I going to Canucks now?
Yeah, let's talk about the Canucks.
Okay, well, we're in the middle of, obviously, a very interesting race for the wild card, which, going into this season, if you told me we were battling Calgary for a playoff spot, I probably would have just cried and gouged out my own eyeballs. But right now, it is kind of fun to watch. Since our last pod episode, I think we did... Last week's one was on Sunday, right?
Yep.
Okay, so we lost to Dallas, which it's funny because we outplayed them, but none of our shots were falling, and then we just had like some defensive lapses that let them get good chances. But they played a good game, and the same goes for the game against Montreal. They outplayed Montreal. They lost anyway. They dug themselves into a hole really, really early, and they couldn't make the comeback. And I mean, like, if it were earlier in the season and they were losing on these types of efforts, it's okay. But at this point, we just need wins, and any loss sucks. Yeah. So that brings us to Wednesday's game against Calgary, which was basically, it felt like it was a do-or-die game. Because Calgary had 2 points on us and a game in hand. And if we lose that, our hopes are shredded.
It'd be over.
So... It's a very interesting game. It was going into it. It was the two teams who had scored the least amount of goals in 2025. And if you're an outside viewer, I wouldn't be looking at that game as an interesting one because you're not going to see a lot of action. But it ended up being a really exciting game. They went back and forth. The Canucks scored first. Then it was Calgary. Then it was Vancouver. Then it was Calgary. Then it was Calgary again. And then, with 6 minutes left, Victor Mancini, great shot for rebound, goes right to Pettersson, ties it. The interesting part was late in regulation where the refs missed 2 penalties that absolutely would have been called at any other point in any other game on Calgary. I think even the Flames announcers were like, "Oh, you can make of that what you want." And when the
that means it's
announcer, That means it's a penalty. It's just a penalty. So, like, it would have been nice to get a power play late in regulation. We gave up a shorty that game, so maybe it wouldn't have worked out that well for us. But winning that game in regulation would have been a really big thing. Still, you go to overtime. You just got to win. You still got to win. Overtime was pretty crazy. It was really end-to-end. Canucks controlled possession for the most part. Got a lot of great chances. Pettersson got a little bit unlucky on the one time where it bounced off the boards. It just didn't bounce far enough to him to be able to tuck it in before Wolf got across. And they were not able to complete it, so we go to a shootout, which the Canucks have won one shootout in the past 23 months. And I was terrified. I was scared out of my wits for this because I already hate shootouts, but in a game like this, being decided by a shootout, that sucks. Pettersson goes first for the Canucks after Calgary misses, tucks it 5-hole, beautiful, great work. Calgary ties it. It ends up in round 4 where Sharangovich fails on a nice save by Lankinen, and then it's up to Connor Garland, who he's got that clutch factor this year. It's really fun to see.
Dog.
I mean, he was pretty good last year in these situations. He was fine, but this year he's got it on. I mean, he has 2 overtime winners this year. Now he has a shootout winner to add to that, and so we win that game, and everything's looking up. 2 days ago, both Calgary and Utah lost in regulation, so that was big. And then we go to last night, where we play Chicago, a team you just kind of gotta beat. You have to. We managed 15 shots on goal, and we won 6-2.
Not a good day for the Chicago goalies. Not a good day.
Our goalies, Arvid Soderblom was in net for every single goal. He had a 600.
They didn't pull that, man? Well, I guess Mrazek's gone.
I mean, like, what's even the point? You're going to lose.
Yeah, it is Chicago.
Why waste Spencer Knight?
You're not playing for anything. Yeah.
Why waste
Spencer
Knight's
Knight
energy?
could cook there, but I don't know.
I feel bad for Bedard specifically. He's been having a really, really rough go of late. 2 straight misconducts. And, I mean, everybody has contrasted it with what Celebrini's experiencing in San Jose right now. He's just having the funnest time ever. He's driving ATKs on the ice and stuff.
Despite having a worse team, they're going to get eliminated today. We see that? That's actually hilarious.
If St. Louis gets a point or if Vancouver gets a point, the San Jose Sharks are eliminated from playoff contention. But I think they know that they're supposed to be that bad. The difference is, like, San Jose made some moves to become more of a winner, like getting to Foley. And
Cody
Wallman
Ceci.
Originally. Sure, Cody Ceci, yeah, sure. Yeah. But I don't think they had any plans to be that competitive this year.
Oh, no.
Chicago, on the other hand, they brought in quite a bit of stuff over the offseason and probably thought they'd be getting at least out of the gutter. Maybe not into playoffs, but out of the gutter.
Yeah.
And they are very much in the gutter. Even
basically no improvement.
Even losing to San Jose, which is funny. But yeah, no, I feel bad for Bedard, but at the end of the day, I need that Canucks win. And there was there is a very, very interesting game tonight along the same lines as the Calgary one. It is against Utah at 8 Eastern. Currently, the Canucks and Utah are tied in games played. They've played an even amount of games. And Vancouver's ahead by 4 points. So this is a huge swing. If Vancouver were to win in regulation, they're 6 points up or 3 wins up on Utah. If Utah were to win in regulation, they're 2 points back or 1 win back of Vancouver. So this is the difference. This could be the difference between 1 win back or 3 wins back.
That's massive.
This is, yeah. You know what else is massive?
Just move on with it.
If Vancouver wins this, it does not look good for Utah because after tonight's game, there will be 15 games left, and they got to make up at least 3 games of ground on us.
You want to know who They were definitely watching. They were definitely watching the Calgary Vancouver game. You know who was absolutely crushed by that game going to overtime?
Who?
Just all of the Western wildcard teams, because that game going to overtime essentially eliminates them. I know it's literally 1 point, but both of your top competitors both gain ground on you. And it could have been worse if it was an overtime win for somebody, but even a shootout loss, that's 3 points to your competitors in one game. Not many of those kind of close divisional games actually go that far. If they miss out by 1 or 2 points, man, it'll be because of that. And it's tragic because I honestly wanted to see... I'm glad that the Utahns are playing in meaningful games, and the fans are clearly enjoying it. Shout out Michael Ranks. But, man, I would love to see that. It would be a little silly to have that arena right now play playoff hockey, but that would be sick. Everyone would like that.
I don't want to see it. I'd way rather... If we aren't going to make it, then I definitely want it to be Calgary.
Really?
I don't want to see Utah.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. But, Elias Pettersson. I got to talk about Elias Pettersson before we move on from that. Elias Pettersson, past 5 games, he's got 6 points, and 4 of those are goals, including in 3 straight.
2 power play goals.
His goal that bumped the slump was a very nice one against Minnesota, slapper from the point into the top corner. That's vintage Pettersson. And then he scored against Montreal. That was a snipe. It was a wrister. Also on the power play, I believe. Also top corner. And then we go to the game against Calgary where he scores that game-tying goal. And it's not like a crazy goal. It's just a rebound goal. But he's in the right spot. He makes sure of it. And that's still a great goal. In a clutch moment, too. And then yesterday, he scores a very, very nice one that was so nice they didn't even know it was a goal. So he's been earning these goals, too. It's not like he's been lucking into them, because Pettersson isn't really a lucky guy at all this season.
He's coming back.
It's nice. We need him to perform like this if we want to have a chance at making playoffs. If he can keep this going for the last 16 games of the season, I would say we are in very good shape. Unfortunately, Brock Besser's doing nothing.
Yeah. I mean, for $12 million a year, that's not a lot to ask for him to perform down the stretch, and I think it can happen. And I honestly love to see it. It feels like it's a little tragic that all of the hate has gone away, because there's no possible chance there's like a 1% chance for us to play in the playoffs, but it's not happening. No. It just feels like both these teams have just such weird struggles with themselves, and they don't have enough. They hate their team. At least the fans do. There's no hate left for other fan bases. That's how I. Can you agree with that right now?
Yeah, I don't really care that much about Edmonton.
Yeah, it's tragic. Maybe next year we'll get some. But on that topic, the Western wildcard, you said you wanted Calgary to make it if Vancouver doesn't. What about the East? Because that one is as interesting as the Western wildcard races. What about the East?
You could argue it's more interesting just because of how many different teams are in there. Ottawa has really pulled away from the rest of the group, which is nice to see. I mean, I love it. They got Cousins and Zetterlund. I mean, they're mismanaging Zetterlund right now. Yeah. They made some moves at the deadline. They're competitive, and they've been very, very good since. Other than that, it is a very tight race for that second wildcard spot, and Montreal, by points percentage, currently has it, but by points, New York Rangers have it. And then you still have Columbus, who's in the mix. Detroit can go on a 7-game win streak every so often.
Or 7-game losing streak, that'll happen.
Yeah, well, one of the two. You never know. I think we're losing teams slightly because the Islanders could still kind of be in, but probably not. Boston's not in, Pittsburgh's gone, and Philadelphia's gone. And Buffalo's been gone.
The Islanders do have the math. They do. They have 2 games in hand on the Rangers, and they're only 6 points back. If they got that win against Edmonton, they absolutely are in it. But I still don't think they're in it, especially because they sold on Nelson, and they don't really have anything to replace that on forward.
And it's not like
I
they have to only they don't have to only pass the Rangers. There are a lot of other
Oh yeah, I
teams in
mean there's
between them and
four
that
teams
spot
they need
too.
to leapfrog. It's bad.
Yeah.
I Man, I would die. I would actually die for Ottawa and Montreal to both make it. That would be
I would love it.
so sick. And in the West, you could it's not happening, but you could possibly have the Canucks and Flames pass Minnesota if they like get seriously in trouble, and then every single Canadian team makes the playoffs. That would
That
be
would be
so
really
fire.
funny.
But unfortunately, it looks like one of the Canucks or Calgary and one of Montreal or the Rangers or Columbus is going to miss it. And I would say those are the three teams I expect to make it. I think Detroit is going to do a similar thing to last year, where this is going to be decided on like the very last game 81, game 82. It's going to be absolute cinema, middle of April. But I just on paper, the Rangers should do it. They need to get these wins against these teams like Edmonton tonight. They need to get those teams against the playoff teams from the other conference, from within their division. And they have not really been doing that. They're kind of beating up on the lower teams. Recently, their game has come around, but they just had that bad stretch when Drury started speaking. And outside of that, they're okay. But man, there's so much wrong with that team, and they're still probably going to make it. They have the best odds by quite a bit.
It's kind of my nightmare to see the Rangers make it and the Canucks miss, because then the whole "they traded the wrong guy" crowd is
Oh
gonna
yeah, no,
come out. And
no way.
I mean, right now it's people were quick to say they traded the wrong guy right after the trade, but currently, right now, I haven't heard that like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
The past 2 weeks, it's they've kind of shut up a little bit.
I mean, yeah, if we want to go back to the Miller trade, I don't think no matter what you do, I don't think the Canucks can come out of that situation winning a deal like that. Miller's time was up. Pettersson's was not. It was a very different situation, and I think you had to stick with Pettersson there. That's a whole other thing. And Miller was always going to be playing better outside. But we're looking at a scenario here where the playoff team, the wild card 2, is going to be like an 89-91 point team, like that level of awful. And then they could technically, I could see them beating one of Washington or Florida or Tampa or Toronto or whoever wins those divisions. It could be good. It could be good. But man, please, if Montreal doesn't make it, at least have the Blue Jackets make it, because that'd be such a nice story. Just not the Rangers. Anyone but the Rangers.
I want it to be Ottawa and Detroit, but I'd be happy to see Montreal or Columbus make it. I agree, not the Rangers.
I'd be happy with
Okay, do we want to
with
head on
Detroit.
to the Heart Talks?
Oh yes, no. This is interesting. Can you remember a year, 2018 off the top of my head? Can you remember another year where the Hart Trophy race was this close?
No.
Yeah. I mean, there's an argument to be made for McKinnon. There's outside chances for Werenski. The betting sites seem to be respecting him now. I believe he probably will get a 4th or 5th place nominee. But it looks like your 3 nominees right now are Hellebuck, Draisaitl, and McKinnon. Out of those 3, how would you rank them?
I think at this point, Hellebuck has to be first. And then I'd have Draisaitl and then McKinnon.
I think it's very close. For me, maybe I'm biased. I don't know. For my own personal definition of the Hart, I can't give it to like a top 5 team. It's a little different because of just how important Hellebuck is. And I think if we're being realistic here, goalies are always going to be the most important players of a team. It doesn't matter if you have like a 22, 23 Connor McDavid. If you have a Hellebuck on your team, he's the most important player. So I would be perfectly fine if they give it to Hellebuck. But right now for me it's Draisaitl, and it's mostly because of how bad the Oilers have been. They went through 5 losses in a row, and Draisaitl maintained a goal streak. He has a 17 game point streak, and the last 17 games have just been awful for the Oilers. There are nights like the Islanders where he single-handedly literally drags them into it. Just because of how he plays, he's literally dragging them into it. The way he plays is just so ridiculously dominant right now. He is, possession-wise, expected goals, having by far a better season than McKinnon at even strength. On the power play, it's more of a systems issue for the Oilers. They just need to change things up, and Colorado seems to have it more stacked there. And I always hear the dumb, idiotic conversation about, Draisaitl has McDavid. First of all, McDavid is playing a dumbass this year. Everyone can see that. He'll always be the best player in the world until he does this next year, which he won't. But McDavid is very obviously, I would argue, not trying right now. That's probably the word I would use. He's not hurt. He's not sick. He's not trying. He doesn't care. Draisaitl has taken the reins as the leader of this Oilers group, and he is just running with it. Now, there's that same argument I was talking about. Draisaitl has McDavid. He has the other best player in the world. How can he be another Hart nominee on the same team? McDavid should not be in a top 10 conversation for the Hart right now. He shouldn't. I know he's like 5th in odds, but that's just because of his name. We'll say it right now. But Nathan McKinnon had Mikko Rantanen, and he had Martin Necas. And now he has the probable Norris winner in Cale Makar. How can we possibly make that argument that Draisaitl cannot win the Hart because of who his teammates are, when his team has, frankly, been awful for a month? And the other nominees are the first place in the league Winnipeg Jets, who, I'll say it for myself, they are an average team without Hellebuck, and that's why I could honestly see him winning, and I would be perfectly fine with it. Or the Colorado Avalanche, who are rolling, they're 7th in the league, and they have a top 10 player in the league for most of the last decade, Mikko Rantanen, for half the season. And then they got a great young player with Martin Necas, who's scoring at the exact same pace he was before he left. And the Norris winner. So that argument does not stack up, because Colorado has been a better team than Edmonton overall, if you aren't just talking about potential and on ice play. They are above them in the standings, and they have had better production years. Additionally, with that, McKinnon is also not as good of a defensive player. So I wouldn't even have McKinnon in the top 3 personally. Maybe I'm just hating. I would definitely have Werenski instead. But either way, Hellebuck, Draisaitl, I don't think anyone else is close.
I mean, you could also make an argument if the Bruins somehow make it, Pasternak should probably be up there. But they're probably not going to make it.
No.
Werenski, it'll be cool to see him get votes. It sucks that Quinn got injured.
Yeah.
Because he would have been right up there.
He was leading for much of the year for me.
It really, really sucks that Kaprizov got injured, because I was going to look like a fucking genius with my preseason Hart pick
Maybe
being
next year.
Kirill Kaprizov out of nowhere, and then he was leading the Hart race until he got injured. That sucks for me. I feel really bad for myself and nobody else involved. Anyway, yeah, I don't have any strong opinions on this, because my Hart favorite nominee guy on my team isn't there anymore, so I don't really care.
I know that the betting odds have, at least most sites have, Draisaitl at just above 2-1 odds to win it. So it looks like right now, if he continues on this pace and Hellebuck doesn't completely destroy win records and save percent records, which he could, he very well could. It looks like it'll probably be Draisaitl, but there's the poll came out recently with the NHL writers, and they had McKinnon at number 1 by a pretty sizable margin, which again, if you watch this league consistently, that doesn't make any sense. It depends on what even if your definitions for the heart are just who has the most wins and who has the most points on that team with most wins, which is a very dumb criteria, then it's Hellebuck, because he's the most important player on the best team. Colorado is like the 7th best team right now, and McKinnon is one of their best players. They also have Makar. They also have Blackwood. It's name value for McKinnon. I'll put it out there right now. He should not be a nominee for the Hart. I don't think so. It's just points. That's all it is. He might get the Art Ross.
Okay. Let's go to the Calder. I think there's still kind of just 4 main ones. Do you want to rank them?
I mean, the Calder is even more interesting than the Hart. And frankly, I have looked at most of the arguments for either guy. What I will tell you is I wouldn't have Michkov in the top 3. So my nominees would be Dustin Wolf, Celebrini, and Hudson.
Yeah.
I don't fully buy the argument that Hudson is like utterly overrated and defensively it's a wash. He doesn't have good defensive numbers. They're pretty bad, but he has great defensive ability, and he's not like a total liability on defense like we've seen before. And it's just offensive numbers are just amazing. But I think it ultimately comes down to Celebrini and Dustin Wolf for me. And it's a weird situation where I would probably be inclined to maybe give Dustin Wolf a 5th place Hart vote. He's been that ridiculously valuable for the Flames, who are 32nd in goals scored. And yet they are 2 points out of a playoff spot. It's just ridiculous.
I could see him having a Hart vote if they were to make the playoffs. I think the glaring numbers that I'm staring at right now, his save percentage on the season is .914, and Dan Vladar's is .893. That is 21 points of separation, and Vladar would be the one getting the worst competition.
Dang.
So that is quite interesting. I think I still have Celebrini over him, probably. I think
it's tough. It's really tough. I don't think there's a wrong answer here. Even if you wanted to say Hudson, I don't think that's a wrong answer.
No matter what happens, every other fan base is just gonna be like, "Oh, this guy was robbed. This is the worst choice ever." Do they even watch hockey?
Yeah.
There's not a wrong choice, but there's definitely not a right choice.
I have a lot of Flames fans in my DMs on the daily sending me Dustin Wolf stats, and I have one Sharks fan giving me relative scoring rates for Celebrini, and he's up there with Taylor Hall in terms of scoring when he's on the ice compared to the rest of the Sharks. So that's another thing. He's one of the most valuable players considering where his team is at, just because of how bad the Sharks are. I don't think you can completely overlook how bad the Sharks are when you're considering Celebrini. His defensive play is all right. It was better earlier in the year. But as it stands right now, I think goalie is a harder position to play. I would go with Dustin Wolf first.
I just noticed the bags under my eyes. I look like I got punched in the fucking face.
Yeah.
I need to go to sleep like right after this.
Drinking. That's drinking.
I have nothing left in me. My body is going to shut itself down.
I see. All right. Well, I guess we'll switch over to questions then. We're done with the Hart. We're done with the Calder. All right. What do we got in the mailbag?
Okay, this one is from Golden Knights memes, unfortunately. If the Nucks and Oilers were wiped off the face of Earth, who would you root for instead?
The Habs.
Why?
They're just an infectious fan base. I genuinely love a lot of the players. I'm very familiar with their lineup, top to bottom. I'm very familiar with their players, very familiar with their prospects. And yeah, it's a great fan base. It's a great atmosphere. I'm sucked into it.
I'm taking Detroit, which would suck for me, but they're my second favorite team. I guess currently right now I'd probably pick LA for Kuzmenko, Well, I don't think he's staying there for. I don't know if. I hope he resigns there. I don't know.
It looks like he could.
Overall, like long term, it's Detroit. But
Why
oh
Detroit?
my goodness, I'd lose my mind. My dad's a fan,
Oh,
so
yeah, okay.
I follow them because of that. Uh, yeah, I mean, if the Canucks got wiped off the face of the planet, I think I'd probably just give up on hockey.
I think if well, yeah, that's the thing. I probably wouldn't care as much. It would take a lot more. I think eventually I would get back into it, finding a fan base, but it would definitely take a couple of years. I think if Edmonton got wiped off the face of the earth, I'd probably have bigger problems to worry about. But either way,
Yeah. If Vancouver got wiped off the face of the planet, I'd be good.
yeah, you'd survive. You'd be fine. You'd be fine.
Okay, I got our second question, and I'm gonna conform it to be both of our teams.
Okay,
This is from not Luke Dean.
not Luke Dean.
What Canucks and what Oilers player would like music the most? The Playboy Cardi album Music.
Jake Wallman.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
pretty easy. Yeah, that's pretty.
Not-
He probably
easy
listened
for
to
you,
it on
yeah.
the drop. To be honest.
Yeah,
What did you think of that album?
probably
What
would-
did you think of that album? We'll stop here. What
I
did you think
liked
of this
it.
album?
I like. It's not incredible. It's very bloated. Like 30 songs is way too many. I guess after 5 years, that's kind of what he owes his fans. But I thought there were a lot of great songs, and my favorite is "Pop Out," which a lot of people don't like, but I love noises.
Yeah, it's very. Anytime I see an album and it's over an hour and 10 minutes, or it's over 21 songs, I'm not listening to it. The songs I did listen to it front to back, and I thought it was very bad at some points and great at some part, like classic Cardi. Overall, I think if you just ignore the noise songs, which I'm sure you love, it's a very. I love it. Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
I think the Canuck that would like it the most is Thatcher Demko because he is really weird.
Not Pedersen?
No,
Really?
Pedersen listens to like.
He listens to
I
Cardi.
guess he listens to upbeat stuff. I think he listens to like EDM, but I don't think that's close enough.
Oh
to
yeah,
Cardi.
no, the weird European music. Yeah.
Yeah, I would. I don't know if anybody on the team would particularly like it. I mean, I think Kiefer Sherwood had his song of the year as "Timeless" by The Weeknd and Cardi. So
Really?
maybe it's Kiefer. Maybe it's Kiefer.
If he plays that on the aux, he's getting some very strange looks in that locker room. I'll tell you that.
Maybe. But to me, Kiefer Sherwood is timeless.
Okay, we got one more question here. Do we have any good
Nope.
ones? No. Oh, you guys disappointed.
Do you think the Kings win a playoff series? That's from JQ32 memes.
No.
Yeah, me neither.
I want to say they're going to beat the Oilers somehow. For some reason, that makes sense to me. It's not happening. It's not
Oilers
happening.
plot armor.
They Oilers plot armor, and they just don't have the will. They don't have the will. They've never had a dominant performance in a clinching game. Nothing even close to it.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I think that's gonna do it. I think I said like this has to be my lowest word count in an episode ever.
Could be.
But I'm basically on a different planet right now, so
I feel you. Well, that was episode. Who cares? 20. I don't know. 23.
23.
23.
It's our LeBron episode.
I didn't even know that was his number, I'll be honest. All right. That's going to
He
do
might-
it.
he might
Sunday
respect that.
afternoon, Rangers, Oilers, 5 p.m. Western. We usually blow them out in MSG. It's usually a very favorable building, but if we don't win this game, I'll be very, very, very disappointed. That's basically how I'm feeling about every game on the schedule lately. We play Utah, we play the Stars. We need to beat them. But that'll be it for us. I'll say my goodbye here. We'll see you all next time. Anything last to say?
Brock Besser, please do something.
You heard the man. Do something. Goodbye.